What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, check out the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. You can hook us up on Twitter as well at Rich Q on Q. Pretty much uniform. Hashtag BYP. You guys have been fantastic with the engagement, the subs, the comments. Really, really appreciate it as the NFL season is among us. Thursday night, Detroit, Kansas City, our NFL Insider, who's going to be joining us for another year doing what we do, our good friend Lloyd Vance on this another edition of BYP, and always good to touch base with you, my friend. All right, so we've kind of ripped through a lot of the storylines, the divisions. We previewed. Everything's up on the channel, on the YouTube channel. Real quick though, some I think kind of big news with Kelsey with getting banged up and the injury with Kansas City. Still hasn't really moved the line too much against the Lions on Thursday night. Kansas City is still laying 5. But, I mean, listen, initial reactions to that is a big piece of that offensive puzzle if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
It is. And you want he's their main guy because they let Tariq go to Miami over a year ago. And, Kelsey just stepped right up. I know he's getting up in age. He's about 33 years old. And he is going to get these nagging type injuries. So hopefully they can get it together early in the season and lean on guys like Sky Moore. Kadarius Toney seems to be healthy. He may get some opportunities out there. MVS is there as well. And they have some other younger receivers. So it's Patrick Mahomes, so he's going to go out there and play with who he's got. He's still the best quarterback in the league, defending MVP of the Super Bowl as well as the regular season. So he's going to go out there and one of the guys I'm sure we'll talk about later on as a breakout type player, Isaiah Pacheco. They're probably going to lean on him a lot more of those screens and get him out in space. And McKinnon as well coming out of the backfield. So Andy Reid will have something cooked up. Don't you worry.
Yeah, quick turnaround too on Thursday. Didn't suffer a long-term injury, which is good. And then you got the Bosa situation down there with San Francisco. Still hasn't reported. I know there's been some, thought out there that a deal gets done. I mean, but listen, 49ers, you talk about that defense, the lifeblood, the heart and soul of that defense is Bosa. So his status is uncertain when they open up the season against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's our all-pro guy, and he was in that Defensive Player of the Year race last year. I know he got a little beat up against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and that whole game kind of turned on that. And it's going to be interesting to see if he is able to come back and they're able to resolve this situation. John Lynch is their general manager. He's a former player, so you would think he would kind of understand a player's plight and maybe give him some more of that money. But these guys right now, when they're drafted in the first round, they have that 5th-year option to play with these teams, and they're going to use that. It's not like the old days where a rookie would come in and he would fight for that contract, and it right now it's pretty much slotted, and it is what it is, depending on the picks in front of him and behind him. So, I think they're going to probably wait him out. The York family is the owners there, and they'll probably say, you know what, let's just see how long we can go before which side blinks. And we've seen this so many times where players talk tough, but when those fines start adding up and those missed game checks, that definitely drives a player to report. So we're going to see how this goes. And we know right now that Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for the Chiefs, he's under contract. He hasn't reported either, and his fines are, into the millions of dollars right now. So, and then Bosa could miss game checks.
Yeah, remember a couple of years ago, TJ Watt reported to training camp, didn't participate in any type of team practices or anything like that. And I think he got signed 4 days before the Steelers turned around and opened up the season against the Bills back in 2021. I mean, you want to get that long-term type of deal done. Absolutely. And Bosa, as we talked about, he's arguably one of the best, if not the best, all-around defensive player in the NFL. It's not Aaron Donald anymore. He's getting up there. Sorry, he's getting older. Parsons is a very good player, but again, that's a conversation for another day. San Fran needs him to kind of set the tone. All right, let's start with our playoff teams, and then we'll run through the gamut on a Football Friday edition of BYP. We'll look at the week one lines and we'll recap Thursday night football. So let's start. We'll hold the NFC East for last, but we'll look at the NFC to start, and then we'll obviously jump to the AFC. Let's start with the NFC North. Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota. Minnesota's got the veteran and Cousins. Chicago trying to build around Fields. We talked a little bit about Jared Goff being that quarterback, maybe pressure situation, right? And then Green Bay, no Aaron Rodgers, but maybe it's a huge sigh of relief with Love, and there's no expectations. Who do you like coming out of the NFC North?
Yeah, this is an interesting division because, as we know, Aaron Rodgers is now a New York Jet, and he kind of steered the whole situation there. Yes, last year it came down to the very end, and in terms of whether they qualified for playoffs or not, and Minnesota ran away with this division. But as we talked about in our preview, Minnesota, losing Dalvin Cook, that's a big loss for them. Kirk Cousins is in a contract year. Offensive line kind of in flux because Brian O'Neill's coming back from very bad knee injury. And then defensively, the Vikings, they couldn't stop anybody. You hate to be mean, but they just were allowing way too many points and a lot of shootout types of games. Now,
Yeah.
I still believe that they will be in the mix in terms of getting one of the 7 playoff spots. But I think it's Detroit's year. I say all that kind of stuff, and Dan Campbell last year, he's talking about biting off kneecaps, and everybody's laughing at him. And
He
does this
doesn't want to
guy
do
know
that.
what he's doing? He's a former tight end coach. Is he really head coach material? I thought he did a really good job with that unit, as well as the general manager who came over from the Brad Holmes, who came over from the LA Rams. So they've built a good young roster. Now I'm interested to see in terms of the running back position. They lost Jamal Williams, who went to the Saints. He scored a lot of touchdowns for them last year. As we all know, in the Philadelphia area, DeAndre Swift is down, Philadelphia Eagle. And we'll just see how that kind of plays out now. They do have Jahmyr Gibbs, who they got from the University of Alabama, very high in the draft in the first round. I think they're going to lean on him a lot, and because Montgomery's a little banged up in their backfield. So can Jared Goff carry the water? We talked about that earlier
Yeah.
in the quarterback ranking. So, but I think he'll be able to do the job with Amon St. Brown and some of those other pieces. So I think it's the Lions year in a very close situation. I think the Vikings also make the playoffs, possibly as a wild card. Green Bay will be better than people think. I know last year, 8-9, they'll probably be around that same range, but Jordan Love will not be as bad as people think. So I think he's going to start clicking with LaFleur, and he's going to even make some plays with Watson and the rest of the guys there. And then to wrap it up, Chicago, another team, there's nowhere to go but up. They're 3-14 last year. Justin Fields is a guy who is a potential breakout player. He almost broke Lamar Jackson's rushing record, and he was dynamic with his legs last year, but they're looking for him to pass the ball more with DJ Moore and Claypool over there. So, he's got some pieces, and they'll be a better team. They'll be one of those dangerous teams, especially a spoiler down the stretch. But here's the order I go. Detroit with I won't give records, but Detroit in first place, Minnesota, they sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, Green Bay, and then Chicago.
Yeah, I pretty much echo your sentiments. I think Detroit's on the rise. Obviously, they got the big win to pretty much knock Green Bay out of playoff contention to close out the season. They've got the weapons, as you've kind of illustrated. Goff, we're waiting to see him do it again, right? With the money being dangled in front of him. I think he's going to put up some yards, and I think he's going to put up some monster numbers with this team. They'll score about 28. Can they shut down teams when they have to and get them off the field on third down? Minnesota, I'm a Captain Kirk fan. I love the weapons. I think Dalvin Cook is a loss. We saw what that defense didn't do in that wild card game against the Giants, where Jones and Barkley and Hodges, they just actually lit them up. That's going to be their bugaboo, but they're still good enough, them and the Lions, to solidify themselves to make the playoffs. I still like Minnesota winning the division. Chicago is going to be a little better. I'm not too sold on Chicago. I think Fields is a nice quarterback. Got to fix the defense up, give them some weapons. They did add a little bit, obviously, to the defense. And then you have Green Bay. And I think this is a year where, as much as everyone's saying, you're Aaron Rodgers free, Man, I'll tell you, for 13, 14, 15 years, every Sunday, he was out there, right? Aside from getting banged up here and there, but he was there. You knew what you had. I still think Jordan Love, young quarterback, work in progress. I can see them winning maybe 4 or 5 games. I don't believe they're going to win a division like others suspect, but I do like Chicago. I'm sorry, I do like Minnesota and Detroit, like you, coming out of the North. Then
And
you
one
got the
quick
end.
caveat,
Yeah.
yeah, and one quick caveat, I think Justin Jefferson is going to break the single season catch yardage
Receiver.
record. Yeah,
Oh,
receiving yardage. Yeah, you may see our first 2,000-yard receiver this year in
wow.
Justin Jefferson. If he's healthy, they're going to be throwing the ball to him
Yeah,
a lot. I know they have
100%.
Addison, the kid they drafted from USC and Pitt at one time, but you know, I think Jefferson's poised to have a huge year. So
And they got,
look for that
yeah,
2,000-yard mark.
just signed, gave the big money to Hawkinson as well, the tight end. NFC South, I'm hearing all this talk about the Falcons being better. I don't trust the quarterback at all. Tampa Bay, and then you got Carolina, young quarterback, and then you got the Saints. I can tell you right now, for me, I like the Saints to win their division because of the quarterback. You've got a veteran, very serviceable and good quarterback in Carr. Change of scenery now, out of the AFC, out of the AFC West. I don't think that division is going to be very competitive. So I can tell you right now, me, Q, I like the Saints to win the NFC South.
Q, and I'll echo your sentiments there. I think the Saints, we're going to see if Dennis Allen is the right guy. He came in there to replace Sean Payton, and
Yep.
last year is kind of a bumpy road. Him and Carmichael, the offense coordinator, they weren't doing that great of a job. Defensively, I thought he did a nice job in terms of Cameron Jordan and the rest of those guys on defense getting after people. So, but when I look at the Saints, I think that they win a lot of, they were 7-10 last year, but they lost a lot of close games.
Yep.
They have a new kicker in there, and they're going to be winning a lot of these close games by field goals, and they love playing at home. So I think they were 7-10 last year. They make the jump. I think at least 2-3 wins. Maybe they're 10-7 this year. In terms of the Falcons, I agree with you. Desmond Ritter, I have them at the second spot. Yes. What do we know about him? We saw him in Cincinnati, and they had a good run there. But this is pro football, and does Arthur Smith really believe in him? We're going to see in terms of that. There's a lot of weapons around him.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson, everybody's excited about him. Kyle Pitts
Yep.
and Drake London, the young receiver. So they have some pieces there in place, but the offensive line has struggled at points. And we know a young quarterback and a struggling offensive line, that's not a good thing. I think Carolina will be third. They're going to be another one of spoiler type teams. Frank Reich's down there. He's building
Soft
something.
schedule.
And yep. They got a last place schedule, and they Bryce is going to have his bumps in the road, but he's the number one overall pick for a reason. He came in there. I talked to a lot of guys. He's become the de facto leader of that offense. There's Adam Thielen and some other guys are there, but the nondescript receiving group and not much in terms of running game behind him without Christian McCaffrey, who was traded. So, but I think Carolina will be that spoiler. And then Tampa Bay will put them in the fourth spot down there. I think they're in a very down position. We saw that last year. They won the division at 8-9. They kind of limped home, and there's no Tom Brady to kind of clean this mess up. And you got Mike Evans fighting about his money already,
Yes.
and Devon White, the linebacker, was fighting in preseason about his contract
Yep. Yep.
situation. And then, of course, in all this, you have Baker Mayfield, who, over the years, I'm just not a Baker Mayfield
Yeah.
guy. I just don't think he can get it done. He makes way too many mistakes, and he's kind of a me type player. And Todd Bowles may be in trouble there. You talk about coaches on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah.
He may be one of them.
Yeah. By the way, New Orleans last year, you were splitting the reps between Dalton, as I like to call him, the water pistol, and then you got Winston. Thomas, I think, has a bounce back year. Michael Thomas, the veteran, the forgotten man. We know they can run the football. It's conducive for Carr, that environment, right? In that stadium. That's why I liked him. To your point, Tampa Bay, journeyman quarterback, not feeling it. Atlanta, I'm not a fan of the quarterback at all, even though the kid Robinson, everyone thinks he might be offensive rookie of the year. We'll see. And then Carolina on the rise a little bit, get a season under the belt with the young quarterback. NFC West, right away, the Cardinals are just going to implode. I'm hammering the under. I'm backing my play. I'm telling you that right now. But I do like two teams coming out of that division,
Yeah.
and one Seattle, because you still have the
Mhm.
coach and you still have the pedigree. And listen, can Geno Smith do it again? That's a tough place to play in. I looked at their schedule. Look, you're going to have to win the divisional games. We totally understand that. But the Rams, Detroit, Carolina, and the Giants, we'll see where this team's at a month into the season. Oh, by the way, Cincinnati off the bye. But I just like their pedigree. We've seen them do it before, time and time again. You got the youthful coach, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do like Seattle. The Rams, I think Stafford is, I think your main cogs with that team, Cup, Donald, Stafford, they're all getting older. They're all getting banged up. And I just think this is a year that it kind of crumbles. I know everyone's saying they're going to be sneaky good. I'm not seeing it. I don't think they'll ever be able to get over that hump and beat the 49ers. And I still like the 49ers. I think the defense is going to carry them. We know about the offensive weapons. We know about the head coaching. Purdy has shown that he's got the moxie. You can go on a run with him. They've got depth at the quarterback position just in case. So I like San Francisco and Seattle coming out of the West.
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you. And I looked at last year what these teams did, and they always beat each other up, and we always say the first team to get to 4 wins in their individual games is going to be the ones winning. And when I do look at it in terms of talent on the paper, we talk about the Nick Bosa situation. Yes, they want to get him back, but I think the Niners have more than enough to win this division once again.
Yes,
Last year
I
they were
agree.
13-4. They bring over Javon Hargrave from the Eagles, who played very well for the Eagles, and he was a big get for him. So they put him on a defensive line and hope they get Bosa back. And then you have Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers that came defensively, and then Shanahan, as you're saying, he's been dialing this thing up, and him and Purdy aren't on the same page. It's a very efficient offense, and Purdy protects that football. And everybody I've talked to says the elbow injury has been healed, and he's able to, make most of the throws. So it may take a couple weeks for him to get truly warmed up, but let's not forget he has Christian McCaffrey there, the huge Swiss Army knife. And when he came over to Carolina, he just changed the tone of their whole team in that season. So they're going to be leaning heavily on him. Look for him to have a Roger Craig type season, where he may have 1,000. They're going to feed him the football. They have Brandon Ayuk as well, and Deebo Samuel, and then Kittle. Hopefully he can hold up for one more year, and they can get good production out. So just too much there, and you saw them get to the NFC Championship game on the road. They're road warriors, and they know how to play when the games
They're
matter
too
most.
good.
Yes, yeah,
They're too good to not make a deep run. Like the only thing that will prevent
right,
them from making a deep run again is these injuries. I mean, obviously you
yeah,
need most in the
definitely.
lineup and on the field, but other than that, I think they're one of the top teams, not only in the NFC, but all of football. They're so balanced. They can kill you and beat you in just so many different ways.
Yeah, and then we look at who they're playing. You talk about this division, and you start to say the
Stack the
Cardinals, and
wins.
I got my pen out. Q. I was like this, cross them off, because the Cardinals are maybe Cliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim, their former general manager. They left a complete mess there. And this is a team, Jonathan Gannon. I just do not believe in him to begin with. With the Eagles, I didn't think he did a good enough job to be a head coach. Now he's a head coach, and is he in over his head? And Kyler Murray, he's going to miss the first 4 games, and he's still beat up, and he's little. And I'm hearing he doesn't like studying, and he is truly a leader. It's just a mess. And then you saw them start jettisoning a lot of their plays. They send Simmons over to the Giants,
Yep.
and a couple other trades right before cutdown day. So, you don't want to say they're tanking, but this looks like it's going to be a long season for them, and they're going to get in the Caleb Williams race. He's probably going to be number one pick out of USC, and then when you talk about the Rams, they were one of the oldest teams at one time, and now their roster's pretty young because they have all these guys from the Super Bowl years that have left, and then you have these couple leftovers,
Right.
Stafford, Aaron Donald, as you were saying, and Cooper Kupp. And what do these guys have left? Cooper Kupp is very beat up, and you saw that last year. coming back from that ACL, and now he has another leg injury going into this season. Can Van Jefferson step up? And there's not much else around them. Akers is a back that I kind of like, but that offensive line has just not been the same since they won the Super Bowl. And Matthew Stafford, you know, at this point in his career, was it lightning in a bottle, or
Right.
everything came together one season? He has very good numbers, but it just seems like he's definitely on a downturn. So when I look at this division, again, San Francisco, and then I do agree with you, Seattle. I think will sneak into the playoffs again. They were 9-8 last year. Pete Carroll's done a very good job with that team. That offensive line is sneaky good. They had a very good draft last year where they brought in a couple of young offensive linemen, Frost in particular, and these young guys are growing. So that offensive line's good. Kenneth Walker, the running back position, they kept him in bubble wrap all preseason, so he should be ready to roll. DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigma, a receiver that I've really been following from Ohio State. And yes, he has that wrist surgery, but they're looking for him to come back. So this is a dynamic team, and I look for Seattle to jump into playoffs as well. So again, San Francisco winning division, Seattle making the playoffs, Rams probably around 5-6 wins, I'm thinking, and then Arizona maybe one of the worst teams in the league. I don't think they're go 0-16 like the old 08 Lions, but it could be ugly. This may be trying to scratch out 1-2 wins in the season for them.
So that's 5, 2 spots remaining. By the way, if Arizona beats Washington and open up the season, that's more of an indictment on Washington, which leads us into the NFC East. I'll make it quick. I think the Eagles are head and shoulders the best team in the division. They're the class of the NFC with San Francisco. As much as I would love to sit here and from a fan standpoint say the Giants are making the playoffs, a couple things that stand out for the Giants for me objectively: 7 of 10 games to start on the road. They've got 3 games in an 11-day stretch. I think they caught lightning in a bottle last year. The scheduling, they grinded a lot of these games out. They won very ugly games. They had the one blowout win over the Colts, but you look at the Bears and Carolina and the Washington, you had Thibodeau make the play. The Tennessee win set the tone. I love what they're building. I think Daniel Jones should be able to put up some big numbers with Waller and Hodges and Hyatt and Saquon, and the defense will be good. But until they can beat the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys and start winning divisional games, go 4-2, 5-1, I can't be a believer in the Giants. They'll win their 7, maybe 8 games this year. Eagles, I can see 11-12 wins like that for all the reasons that we've talked about over the last month or two. Dallas Cowboys, Jerry can sit there and say that Dak's going to be with them a very long time, but when he struggles early on in the season and they're 2-4, 2-5, if that's the case, you're going to hear the rumblings, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. I'm not as high on Dallas as some people are this year. And I would actually say Washington with Hal and Bieniemy, and the fact that Rivera is definitely on the hot seat, I think Washington can win 9 games. I do. Defense, if healthy, they've got offensive weapons. Remember, what were they? 8-1 last year. They had the loss to the Giants, a tie against the Giants as well, and then the loss to the Giants. So out of the NFC East, if I had to throw that dart, we know that it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Winning the division, but that gives me the 6th team. Now I need that one team, right? And is it Dallas? Is it Washington? If you had to give me truth serum, I would probably say the Cowboys figure out a way to freaking get in with 9 wins. But I think the 3 teams, Giants, Washington, and the Dallas Cowboys, 8, 9, 9, and 8. But the Eagles win their division. So I hate saying it reluctantly, because I think somewhere along the way, Dak Prescott's going to be benched this year. Reluctantly, I'm going to say the Dallas Cowboys. So the Eagles and the Cowboys. Reluctantly.
And then
Did I
this
tell?
is an interesting division. One, it's the best in NFC. We talk about the AFC, the NFC is the little brother, and they didn't have a team with a losing record last year. So all these teams are competitive. They had 3 teams make the playoffs last year, and we'll see about this year. Obviously, when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, 14-3 last year, the prohibitive favorite to go back to the Super Bowl. Now we know an NFC team losing in the Super Bowl typically does not make it back. They have
Right.
some difficulty, but when I look at this roster from top to bottom, it's just very loaded in terms of at every
100%.
level. There's a couple key areas that, yes, okay, maybe linebacker, you wonder, how much does Zach Cunningham have left coming over from Tennessee, and he's a little bit older, and can Nakobe Dean control the middle of the field, and then there's the safeties. Their safeties, a couple question marks there with Edmonds coming over from the Steelers,
Yep.
and the young guy back there with them, Blankenship. So it's going to be fun to watch him, but I think the Eagles definitely that. Vegas is saying 11 wins. I think they will get over that 11-win barometer. Last year, 14-3. Obviously, I don't think they'll get to that level again, but I could definitely see 12 wins very easily. In the second position, and I kind of agree with you, sneaking into the playoffs is the Dallas Cowboys. Last year,
Yes.
12-5. There's just too much talent on this team, but that they've built over the years, and it's going to be interesting to see if Pollard's able to carry the load, and that'll free up CD Lamb to kind of on those play action passes that Dak does so well at. But Dak's got to cut down on those turnovers. We talked about it last year, 15 interceptions to lead the NFL. So
Yes.
he's got to do a better job. And McCarthy's on a hot seat one way or the other, because if they sneak into the playoffs and they have to go on the road as a wild card team, they're more than likely going to lose, because we've seen that over and over from them where they can't get it done in the playoffs on the road. So
Got a deep run. Has to. Deep run. It's got to be NFC
yes.
Championship, period.
Yes. And then behind Dallas, I'm going to say Washington. A lot of people are saying the Commanders or they're worried about how, and is he ready to step up and be the quarterback of this team? But this is another team that's stockpiled a lot of people, particularly on defense under Jack Del Rio. They have first round picks everywhere. And I'm hearing Chase Young is finally healthy enough to get out there and make some plays like he did his rookie year. So he's going to be the linchpin for that defense. And then, we'll see how they perform offensively, because they still have McLaurin. The offensive line is improving. I know they're tinkering with it, trying to get it up to speed. And then they have Brian Robinson as well at the running back position. So they do have some talent there. And I think that they are going to surprise some people. And it may be the influence of Eric Bieniemy coming over. He's been acting like the head coach, and he's going to try to want to get a lot out of these players. And
Yeah.
then Ron Rivera, as you're saying, taking that last stand, can he keep his job? So and then the Giants, I think they're another team that could be a spoiler. Yes, we talked about how they're up one season, down the next, and I think this may be the downturn season. But I do like what they're building there with Dayball. He's done a very good job in terms of that team and the roster and building them in his image. They give their quarterback the money. Saquon's going to have a chip on his shoulder, so they're going to be a very dangerous team. As you said, a tough schedule. But I think they may be the fourth position. But that's no shame, as I said, in a division where they all had winning records last year.
So we basically have all the same playoff teams coming out of the NFC. Lions, Vikes, Saints, San Fran, Seattle, the Eagles, Dallas, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
And so we all, and the funny thing is, Q, I always say since 1990, there's always been at least 4 new teams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So this year, I think Detroit and New Orleans will be two new
Yep.
teams in the playoffs in NFC. And then conversely, in NFC, you have the Giants in Tampa Bay. I say don't make it. So it's going to be interesting to see if that trend holds. But it's been 32 some years, and it always shakes out where
Of
the
course.
NFL, you always have that changing of the guard. So
Yep.
it's going to be interesting to see.
Midway through BYP, Rich Quinones here, Lloyd Vance joining us. All right, AFC, we'll rip through this. Start with the AFC. Let's save the East for last. Let's start with the AFC West. Again, pretty cut and dry for me, Lloyd. I mean, Kansas City defending Super Bowl champs. They are the perennial powerhouse, a dynasty in the making, if you will. I think the Chargers, Herbert's going to put up some monster numbers this year. Again, this is a team, I had them last year. I thought maybe they would help me out and bail me out. And, they kind of broke my heart. The Raiders, all right, you swap the quarterback, Carr for Garoppolo. It's like kissing your sister. And then you got Denver. And here's my one bold prediction. I mentioned the struggles of Dak. I think at some point this season, Russell Wilson will be benched. I say that with the utmost confidence. This is not about, blaming Hackett. It's now Sean Payton. Um, I think he's cooked. I just don't think he's the same type of quarterback. I don't see Denver winning 6, 7 games. I'm going to keep it cut and dry with this one. I see one team coming out of the AFC West. I think the Raiders will be there late. The Chargers will be there late, but I like the Kansas City Chiefs coming out of the AFC West.
Well, and I definitely like the Chiefs to repeat in this division. And we'll talk about the opener to begin with, but just a little quick one. Andy Reid 8-0 in openers for the Kansas City Chiefs, and so he finds ways to win. And this team last year 14-3, and Mahomes he's playing at that level. You remember that time when Brady, you just said, oh man, as long as Brady's out there, they got a chance, and they're probably going to beat everybody. So, and then that's the way Mahomes is at this stage in his career, already winning 2 Super Bowls by the age of 27. He knows the offense inside and out, and now it's just him and Andy Reid working together.
Yep.
And I talked about the backs earlier on the beginning of the show, and he's going to lean on Pacheco and McKinnon, and then of course Kelsey is his main guy, and then a young receiver. So they're going to be fun to watch. So I have them in the front spot. I still think the Chargers sneak into the playoffs again, and that's because of Justin Herbert. Last year, 10-7. They'll probably be right around that mark. They have to find consistency. They still lose too many like close games where they miss a kick or something like that, and they can't get it done. And they need guys like Derwin James and Joey Bosa to be healthy on that defense. That defense has a lot of playmakers, but they have to do a better jobs in terms of health and closing out games. So I think they sneak into the playoffs. I'll go with Denver in the third spot, and that's because Sean Payton. I think he will give them a little bit of jump. 5-12 last year, they may be a little bit better, maybe 2 wins more, like 7 wins or
That's a
so.
fair point.
But I do kind of agree with you the way Russell Wilson, when I went back and looked at the all 22 tape, he just was not the right guy. You know what I mean? Last year, and everybody's going to say Hackett, but he had his opportunities out there to make plays, and he was just very tentative in the pocket, outside the pocket, and we'll see how that all shakes out. And there's a lot of injuries on that team already at the receiver position. They got Javonte Williams coming back. Is he going to be the same after that bad knee injury? They say he's fine, but we got to wait and see on that. And then the offensive line has been a mess for a number of years. The Raiders, unfortunately, I think they're going to have a down season. There's going to be the Super Bowl 58 will be in Las Vegas, but safe and short, I don't think they'll be playing in their home stadium there. Garoppolo, how much does he have left at this point in his career? And then he's always been a game manager, another guy who kind of makes killer mistake. Yes, he has Devontae Adams, who's going to make some big plays, and Josh Jacobs, who's a solid running back, but there's not much else there in terms of offensive line, and they get rid of Waller, and who's going to play the tight end position. And defensively, other than Max Crosby, they just don't have much, and they allow way too many big plays.
Yeah, that's been their bugaboo over the last several years defensively, right? I mean, they really couldn't close out games for Carr, obviously, who's now in New Orleans. I'm going to hold true to form with the AFC South. I see one team coming out of the AFC South, Indianapolis rebuilding. I'm sorry. Houston rebuilding. You got young quarterbacks and, these guys. I think Richardson's going to be a nice little player. I'm curious to watch him mature. Tennessee, you got the veteran and Tannehill, who's always banged up. We don't know if they're going to shuffle quarterbacks as well. Very good back and Henry, good head coach. But I like Jacksonville. I think this is a year they really take that next step. I mean, part of me thinks Trevor Lawrence will be in the conversation for MVP. And, everyone forgets Ridley didn't play last year. He's with Jacksonville right now. They got running back. They got a tight end in Ingram who can finally friggin' catch. They got wide receivers, a good head coach. So I got one squad coming out of the AFC South. I have Jacksonville winning the AFC. I think Tennessee will battle them a little bit, but Jacksonville is going to pull away. Houston and Indianapolis are going to have some growing pains.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here, and I only have one team coming out of this division. And when I look at Jacksonville, Peterson, he has that Super Bowl pedigree coming from his Eagles days, and he is really on the same page with Trevor Lawrence. He's gotten him to play at a level, where he was coming out of Clemson, where
Yeah,
everybody thought he was. He kind of regressed his first season, and he's in full control of this offense. You saw that in that drive in the playoffs. They just won those games, and he was
100%.
dynamic in winning them. A lot of read options, and they have Travis Etienne in the backfield. Um, he can make a lot of big plays. Christian Kirk, who came over from the Cardinals, and he was really good in the slot for them, had a career season. And Stephon Ridley, that was a sneaky good deal. They kind of stole him from the Falcons. The Falcons were done with him, obviously, from a suspension. He didn't play last year, but he's a dynamic guy. I remember him coming out of Alabama. The offensive line it is a little in flux because Robinson's been suspended for the first couple games. But when they get him back, they'll kind of solidify that position as well. And then defensively, they have a lot of playmakers. So I definitely agree with you that Jacksonville's the team to beat there. Last year, 9-8. I think they improve upon, maybe go to 11 wins or so this season. In the second position, I tend to agree with you that Tennessee should be in the second position by default. But Tannehill, I think he's on the downside of his career, and they need to start thinking about, okay, what are they going to do in the future? And then Derrick Henry, as great as he's been, he's a back with a lot of carries,
Yep.
and what does he have left? They get DeAndre Hopkins coming over, big receiver. But is he going to start complaining if Tannehill's not getting him to football? So, and then defensively, you got Kevin Byard and some good players there, but I still think last year they were 7-10. Maybe they get to 8-9 or so. We'll see from there. Houston, I think that Stroud's going to be a sneaky good player. Another team, no place to go, but up 3-13 and one last year. I think they could get to maybe 5 wins or so. And in Indianapolis, as you said, with the whole Jonathan Taylor situation, is just a mess with that team and a roster, and Irsay's just saying all kinds of crazy stuff and what's going on there. And Richardson, yes, he's a good dynamic athlete and everything, but he is very erratic at this stage of his career. So may have a lot of fantasy football points from running the football, but in terms of throwing the football, I could see him having some bad interceptions and some growing pains.
I think one of the most competitive divisions in all football, the AFC North. I already told you, I think Pickett and Pickens take that second step. So I'll tell you right now, I think Pittsburgh is going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to have a stretch where they're going to go on a little run. We saw him 6-2 last year. I looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I watched a lot of their games last year. I'm looking at their schedule as well. San Fran, Cleveland, the Raiders, Houston, Baltimore, they can get to 3 quick wins. Then they got the Rams. They can be a 4-2 kind of squad, stockpile some early wins. I just like Tomlin. I've always been a Tomlin fan. Cleveland, I think, is going to stink. You know how I feel about Watson. I think it was a monumental mistake. They can't win divisional games. Baltimore, everyone's talking about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and here we go. And the defense and the offense, and you got Beckham and you got all these weapons. They're going to be a playoff team by default because they're a good team. They're a really good team. But I'm not as high on Baltimore making that deep run as many are. Cincinnati, listen, we talk about Buffalo and the window closing. I think you can make the case for Cincinnati. I think this is pretty much boom or bust for them this year. Get to the Super Bowl, maybe win it, who knows? But I'm a huge fan of the quarterback. I love the weapons. I really like the head coach. I think they play with this chip on their shoulder. They're not afraid to play Buffalo or Kansas City. They're just not. I've got 3 teams coming out of the AFC North. Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. I have Cincinnati and or Baltimore winning the division. Gun to my head right now, I'm going to say Cincinnati, but I can see Pittsburgh winning 8-9 games, getting in last weekend of the season, and I think Baltimore will already stockpile 10 wins, and they should solidify a spot in the playoffs as well. So I got 3 coming out of the North.
Yeah, now that you and I kind of disagree here, and it's fun to see because I think Baltimore's going to have a very good season. I think they
Okay.
win the division. Last year, they got in the playoffs at 10-7, and Lamar Jackson was very beat up, and
Yep.
they were able to win some games with Huntley. So now
Yep.
Jackson has big contract. He's ready to roll, and the offensive line seems to be healthy with Ronnie Stanley and all those guys there. And J.K. Dobbins has been a bubble wrap. They're ready to let him run the football. And then you talk about the Zay Flowers, who could be a potential rookie of the year candidate and Beckham at the receiver position. So they have a lot of pieces in Baltimore.
Two out
And
of
then
four,
defense.
2 out of 4 to start the season. They got Cincinnati and they have Pittsburgh. Actually, 3 out of 4 they have divisional games. Just to say,
Yeah, so we're going to learn very quickly, and we've always said this is one of the better divisions in all football. So that's going to be fun to watch those black and blue games. But I think that the Baltimore wins division.
okay,
Then Pittsburgh, I think, is going to be in the number 2 spot. You know, Pittsburgh last year 9-8. We all talk about Tomlin's never had a losing season, and Kenny Pickett, he had more in interceptions and touchdowns last year, but I think he's grown as a passer and he knows to get the ball out of his hands, and he's going to Deontay Johnson and the rest of the guys there, and Najee is going to improve. He's a good young player, and then defensively they can play with anybody with Hayward, Watts, and Watt, and don't forget Minka Fitzpatrick, who I always talk about as the defensive player of the year candidate. So, I think Steelers will get in the playoffs, probably about 10, 11 wins or so. The surprise and the difference between you and I is I think Cincinnati's going to take a step back this year. I think they finished third. I think they're not going to make the playoffs. And this whole injury with
that's
Joe
a good
Burrow,
point.
this calf thing, I'm wondering like what's going
Tricky.
on there. And then you have Leal Collins on the offensive line. Is he going to be healthy enough?
Yeah.
Joe Mixon's getting a little older out there, but they're going. Last year they were 12-4. I think maybe they finished 8, 9 wins, which may not be good enough in the AFC. The
Okay.
AFC is just so competitive. They'll win a lot of games, and Chase is going to put up some huge fantasy football type numbers, but I think they finished third. And I totally agree with you. Cleveland, they're just a total mess, and Deshaun Watson, he's just like doesn't fit there, and they gave him all that money, which is guaranteed, so he's not going anywhere. But what else do they have around him other than Chubb? And yeah, they have Garrett on defense, but that defense allows way too many points, and they're just a total mess. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So I got Baltimore, Pittsburgh making the playoffs, Cincinnati just missing it, and then Cleveland in the basement.
So you've got Chiefs, Chargers, Jags, Ravens, Steelers. Uh I've got Chiefs, Jags, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincy, which means 2 spots now left in the AFC East. So, and I find it to be a fascinating division. I think New England's going to stink. I think Mac Jones's time is pretty much, it might be it for the hoodie and Belichick and the boys in New England. I see some pundits having them win 10. I don't see it. You're not going to win these divisional games. I think Miami is being ridiculously overlooked. I think they're being disrespected because people can't stand Tua. They've got speed all over. They've got a defense. They know how to play Buffalo, and they know how to play the New York Jets. That team, if Tua doesn't get hurt, who knows what happens? I mean, honestly, let's be fair here. He was arguably the MVP of the first 6, 7 games of the season. So I'm high on Miami. I think Miami is a playoff team. And that would leave 1 spot left for Buffalo and the New York Football Jets, who believe they're going to have the 2000 friggin' and the 78 and the 85 Bears defense. Buffalo, the window is right now. It's getting tighter. It's got to be now or never. And the fascinating, I guess, dilemma / situation to watch from an outside view is the diva wide receiver and the franchise quarterback. And if they're on the same page, if they're truly on the same page, I think they're going to figure it out because of the head coach, and they're a good team. I need Allen not to friggin' turn the ball over. So here's my one other bold prediction, if you will. Buffalo and Miami will make the playoffs. Let me go in a friggin' cave. Let me find myself. Let me go on Hard Knocks. Let me go to the Rangers game. Let me go to the opera. Let me go to this. Let me go to Taylor Swift. Let me go to that crap. Here we go. Relax. Let me put all the cameras on for Hard Knocks and HBO and say all the right things. And I'm going to teach these guys and coach them up. And Zach Wilson. And here we go. Robert Saleh keeping receipts. All this shit and crap I'm hearing from the Jets and their fans. The New York Football Jets. Not the football giants, but the gangrene, the LOL Jets. The New York Jets will miss the playoffs. The New York Jets they will win 8 freaking games, and the much ballyhooed hype defense is going to spit the bit at the worst friggin' time late in the season, and they will get knocked out of playoff contention because I don't want to hear shit anymore from the Jet fans. And you know it's going to be fascinating when friggin' Mac Jones, who got benched for 4 games, comes back to start the last game of the season and throws for 265 and 3 touchdowns, and the Jets give up a big play defensively late, and they get knocked out of playoff contention. The Jets will miss the playoffs.
I'm Rich Quinones. I'm not allowed in North Jersey and New York, Long Island. They don't want to see because
I'm back in my play. I don't care. I'm going to get crushed
they're
on Twitter. I'm
drinking the
going to get
green
crushed for my
Kool-Aid.
face. I don't care. I'm going to get hammered, and they're going to sit there and say, you're not objective. I friggin' said the Giants are going to take a step back. I'm so friggin' I'm just so turned off. You know, none of this, oh, yeah, I really wish you do well, New York Jets. I hope you're, no, 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 no. Enough of that crap. And I said this before. I never liked the move for Aaron Rodgers. I didn't, but I also knew Zach Wilson's time was out of hand. To me, it's another boomer bust. All the bravado, all the talking, if this team does not get to the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl, it's a disappointment. The New York Jets will miss the friggin' playoffs. Buffalo and Miami are my last 2 spots.
All right, he has it on tape for everybody.
I'm back
All
in my
right,
play with it.
now you're going to get mad at me because I'm drinking the green Kool-Aid, and it's not Eagles here where I am. I just think the Jets are too good to fail. They just got too much talent on that roster. Now you just got Dalvin Cook. As long as
They're
he can,
stacked.
as long as he can distribute the ball and keep everybody happy, there's just too much talent on this team, and the offensive line can come together. Which I think they can. I think this is going to be a very dangerous team. We're going to see. Obviously, we talked about that beginning of the schedule is very tough. They play, teams like they start with
Bingo.
Buffalo, and then they got Kansas City, they got the Eagles all in there, and we're going to find out quickly. But I think they have enough to win this division, and that's going to make a great
Can I
story.
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
They've got Buffalo. They go on the road against Dallas. They have New England, who it doesn't matter who's quarterback, and they can never friggin' beat the New England Patriots. They got Kansas City. They got to travel to Denver, come back, and then play the Eagles. Then they get a bye. Then they have the Giants, and they have the Chargers. What? Like, what? Like, what? I mean, come on.
I mean,
One,
look,
two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If they are not 5-2 after 7 games, I don't want to hear crap. And they're talking as if they've already done something. Can you at least
yeah,
win the division and get
that
to the
is
friggin'
always
playoffs?
scary when a team has that glide about them and they haven't achieved anything. But that's what he brings to the table. He's got that moxie, and Aaron Rodgers, even at 39, he thinks he still can get it done and be was he a 3-time MVP and bring that pedigree to this team. They had both rookies of the year last year, so they have a lot to work around him. So
The
they
Duke,
better not fail because we talk about the back pages,
the
of the
Duke
papers out
does not lie, my friend. The Duke does
there.
not lie. I'm telling you right now. So you like
So
the
it,
Jets,
it
that's fine.
yeah, so I like the Jets to win this division. They were 7-10 last year. I think uh it's probably going to take about 11 wins to win this division because they're going to beat up on each other. So hopefully they can get to 11 wins and I could be right. But of course, typically I have to kiss of death. So, the Jets fans should be probably more mad at me, but I have them winning division. Then Buffalo, um, they're getting a lot of guys back. Von Miller
Yeah.
will be back eventually. They got Micah Hyde coming back. They got Hamlin coming back, the feel good story, but it's all going to be around Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. Can they get it done? Can Ken Dorsey revive this offense that was just kind of dormant? We saw that in the playoff game. They look terrible. So we'll see how they do. They have the younger Cook at the running back position that they're ready to let him go and see what he can do. They have Dalton Kincaid, who I really liked coming out of the draft, at tight end position. You have to watch him potentially as a rookie of the year. So I think they do enough, probably to get to 10 wins. Last year, 13-3. But I think they get to probably 10 wins or so, sneak and get one of the wild cards. Miami, unfortunately, I just don't know if Tua is going to make it through the season. You got Armstead coming back from a very bad pectoral injury, and can that offensive line protect him? I know Connor Williams at the center position. He's kind of scary there, gets pressure up the middle, and Tua. Yeah, yes, he's bulked up. He's learned how to fall, doing jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. But he's got to stay healthy, because if he's not healthy, they're in trouble. And they're another team. They have a ton of talent on that team, and if he can't get it done, McDaniel, people are going to be looking at
Mike
him.
White.
Right right now he's the genius. You know what I mean? He's the genius. But I think they were 9-8 last year, and I still see them coming in right around that mark. And then we talk about the talent in the AFC. You're as a 9-8 team, you're just not going to get in the
Yeah,
playoffs
they got
in
Mike
the
White as a
AFC.
backup.
Yeah,
All right,
that's ugly. And then
quickly, we
New
got a
England,
couple.
I'll just go real quick. I
Yeah.
think the hoodie is in trouble, as you said, Mac Jones. I think he's not going to get it done, and you may see him changing a guard there. So yeah,
All right. We got a couple minutes. We got to wrap it up.
sure.
So AFC, NFC, I'll give you my AFC. I actually have, and I know you mentioned that you're a little iffy on Cincinnati. They're out, but I've got Cincinnati and Kansas City in the AFC Championship. And you might jump. I'm gonna surprise you on this one. I've got San Francisco, and the quarterback who I said was going to be under the microscope this year. There's always that team that just comes out of nowhere. You start to see them creep up, and just it's their time, and they've been so shitty and so bad for so long. Motor City. I've got San Francisco and the Lions in the NFC Championship.
Right. Now I have Kansas City, and you're going to really be like, oh God, it's going to be Kansas City versus the Jets.
That's I mean
And
that's I
this is
mean
going
that's
to, I mean, this is going to be the biggest national story. Everybody's going to be on it. It's going to be,
I'll
and
throw
then
up.
you're going to get all the "I told you so" emails. But I think it's Kansas City and the Jets, and then I have San Francisco versus the Eagles in a rematch. But this time the game's in San Fran, and that I think is going to be maybe the difference. So I think, as always, my too early Super Bowl pick, I'll go Super Bowl 58, Kansas City versus San Francisco.
Well,
So
I've got one of those. Well, actually, I don't. I'm sorry. That was last year. My Super Bowl, they're horrible. I mean, the one year the Chargers and the
me
Vikings and the
too.
quarterback got hurt, and they're just so friggin' bad. Part of me was like San Fran, Buffalo, let's turn it back. No, no, no. I'm sticking with it and I'm running with it. And it's absurd to say, but the window is shutting for Cincinnati. And I think the Lions will catch lightning in a bottle. This is why we do this, to have fun. I know Goff's under the microscope, but they can score points. If they can figure out a way defensively, I see Detroit pulling off a major upset going on the road in the NFC Championship. I have Detroit. I have a Lion versus a Bengal. So the Lions and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. How about that? And so you know why I chose those two? Because one of them finally has to friggin' win this damn thing.
That's right. One of them will finally win it, and win a Super Bowl. And
And you know who
you
it's
see
going to
the
be?
Eagles in 2017. It can happen.
It's
With one of these
going to
teams stepping
be
up.
Cincinnati.
All
And you know
right,
it's going
and
to
you're
suck?
going to need Joe Burrow to come back healthy, and that's
That,
going to be interesting.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's going to suck when he misses 5 games and they only win 8 and the prediction's out the window. And I'm going to be like, all right, whatever. But that's the fun of it.
Oh, this is, and
Never
that's what I
hold.
always tell everybody. This is for fun, and
Yeah.
we put it in pencil. It's not in pen.
Well, that's not true.
You
I
know.
put it in pen. I always put it in pen.
Oh,
So, all right. That's not bad. So, you've got, so who do you have winning all?
Q. We have not had a repeat champion since the Patriots back in 03, 04. I think Kansas City is going to do it.
Fair enough.
I think they can. If they can have the health, I think Mahomes is just too good not to win it again. But, as always, the Vance kiss of death, and we'll see how that turns out.
Well, listen, I mean, it's in Mark, or so it might be Q kiss of death with the Duke. Who knows? Lions fans are like, oh, but we'll see. All right, Friday we'll do our week 1 predictions. I think what's going to be interesting is if the Lions win on Thursday, I'm going to look like a friggin' genius Friday for the show, right?
Yeah.
But if they get waxed, but again, it's a long season, tough spot for them to open up the season against Kansas City like that. A 5-point dog, but I think it'll be a nice high scoring game. It'll be an entertaining game, but season kicks off Thursday. We'll do our official week 1 predictions on Friday, and then we'll do Vance's view and recap everything on Tuesday going
Yeah,
forward.
look forward to it. And for the
Yeah.
folks that want to know my award picks. I'm going to put them on my Twitter at Lloyd Vance. So check that out. I'll have, MVP, Rookie of the Year, all that stuff will be out there as well as these divisional picks.
Yeah, hold it off. We'll do it Friday. We'll do it Friday as
Okay.
well. We have a little more time.
Then we
before
will.
weekend
All right.
starts. All right,
I'll
perfect.
wait.
Because I know, and then we always do your lackeys as well. So hopefully I'm not one of them this year. I don't know. But the Jets. All right, my friend. Excellent job as always. We'll get this up on the YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in on another edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. We will talk on Friday, week 1 predictions of the NFL season, my friend. Thank you.
Q, talk to you later.